A little bit today about my parents, godly parents that I love very much, godly parents that mean a lot to me. If it had not been for my parents, my father, my mother, I wouldn't be here today. I would not even be here elaborating to you throughout this way of video, radio, however, Facebook, social media, however you may hear the sound of my voice. But nevertheless, I am so glad and I'm so blessed that because God blessed me to be in the home with my father and mother as a couple. And I count that as a tremendous blessing because there are so many that didn't have their mother and their father in the household once all together. Made mistakes just like you and I. We all have made mistakes. But my mother and my father had their own way of doing the things that they thought was best for us. And coming along back then, it was not easy. Back in the early part of the 60s and the 70s and up through the early part of the 80s, it was not easy for a lot of our parents. Not only for my parents, but it wasn't easy for a lot of the parents back then in the black household family. They struggled, and we struggled, but nevertheless, the Lord had blessed my father. And talking about or thinking about Othinell Sr., he always would tell my mother that he didn't want to work for nobody. He wanted to work for himself. And if I remember correctly, my mother said he had, when I was a little small boy, he had one job as a truck driver. And then he quit that job and decided he was going to work for himself, and he didn't want to be on nobody else's payroll. And being honest with you, back then and there, they didn't talk about entrepreneurship like we do now. And I was unaware that that's what he was. He was an entrepreneur. He had his own business for over 40 years. He was a paint contractor, and he painted houses, churches, schools, lawyers' office, everything around the state of South Carolina that needed a paint job, and they called him. Then he would contract it and go out and paint these large hotels, car lots. I remember him painting Sumter #1 Church of God by Faith Church every year, getting it ready for the October meeting. Bates Junior High, Sumter High, Lincoln High then. It was called Lincoln High. And all these other schools around there, Hillcrest and Ebenezer, Manchester. There were so many places that we went as I became a teenager and began to work with him. And it was just good that I had the opportunity, all of us, my siblings, all 7 of us are still around today, all alive and doing well. We were blessed to have both of our parents, and I'm very much enlightened about that. And I remember when my father got saved and he got into church and raised in the AME church, and then when he moved to Sumter and met my mother, I was told that they became a part of the sanctified church, as you call it, as is known. And he got saved, and believe it or not, my father got saved, he brought my entire family on my mother's side, my father's side, his side. He brought all of them into the Pentecostal arena at Sumter #1. Deacon Candy, Sister Candy, Lucius Brown, my uncle. It was so many of them that was introduced to Pentecostalism in the Church of God by Faith through Othinell Jenkins Sr. And he pastored St. Paul Church of God by Faith for a year. And then after that, they decided, the National Council decided to sell that particular church, that lot. Now, for whatever reason, I don't know, but they sold the churches, and then he began to work with Ella Lewis at Sumter #1 for a short period of time. But I am just so happy and so glad that I had godly parents. My father used to always tell me, if you don't work, you're going to steal. And if you steal, you're going to jail. And he meant that too. And they put a lot of fear in us. And it kept us out of trouble. I did a lot of things that I wasn't supposed to after I got grown. But nevertheless, the teaching that was shared, the teaching that were given, that had been impregnated and planted into me, grew up with all of us. Now today, 60 years later, we can look back now and say we appreciate our parents. My mother, Lucille Brown Jenkins, is still with us today at the age of 84. Still going to church. Got saved at Pinewood Church of God by Faith under the revivalist Elder David Laws. Got saved. My father was saved first. He went back and told the whole family, and he brought the entire family back. I mean, on both sides. I mean, he really introduced more than 16 family members, including both sides, into the Church of God by Faith on the South Carolina district. And that was his way of being a blessing to the church, and also witnessing and let people know that Jesus Christ had changed him, saved him, and set him free. And I am so glad and I am so grateful that my mother and my father did all that they could, raising 7 children on the South Carolina district, along with so many other parents that I was raised up around. I mean, those members and people during that time worked very hard to sustain the church. They was very united. They worked together. They looked out for everybody's children. And you couldn't do nothing bad without somebody telling your parents. So I really appreciate my mother and my father. And my father's gone now. He's been gone for quite some time now, though. Right at about 39 years since he's been expired. But nevertheless, I appreciate Elder Othinell Jenkins Sr., and God knows we appreciate our Mother Lucille Brown Jenkins, which are now 84 years of life. And I'm so excited, I'm so glad about that. And if you have parents that are still around, appreciate your parents. Do what you can for your parents. Even if you don't have parents, your aunt or grandmother, or whoever the person that raised you, look out for that individual. And when you look out for others, God, in return, will look out for you. I'm just so happy and I'm just so glad to know that Jesus is alive and he's living on the inside of us. You have an excellent week. God bless you, and I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you in the next video.